Hey everybody, welcome to Having Had podcast. No real disclaimers today, other than I still really don't know what I'm doing, but I think it's getting better. Today's guest is from the music world, and you guys know him from Vision of Disorder, Bloodsimple, Rollin Coffin. Tim Williams is with me today.
Hello.
Hey
What's
buddy.
going on, man?
I didn't meet you until, and this is crazy, last night, kind of preparing for this. I looked at old dates of VOD and Bloodsimple and realized how, for years, how close we were to each other, how many
Yeah,
shows we were at together, how many of the same bands we toured with, just at different times. You did Ozfest in 97, I did it in 98. You
wow.
did Loco Bazooka the year after I did it. You did, there was one of those other terrible parking lot tours that you
Yeah,
did the year before or after I did. And, and even the fact that I was in New York and working for Life of Agony for almost for 3 years and Anthrax for a little while, and we never met each other back
yeah,
then. It
that's
took
crazy.
COVID and the fact that we're both in recovery and meeting on Zoom,
Yeah,
during COVID and forming a connection. So it's pretty crazy that we were around each other so much and never met.
yeah, it is pretty wild, especially Life of Agony, and if you did Anthrax, we did a lot of touring. I would say with Life of Agony, they have a lot of history with both bands that I was in, and even Rollin Coffin. Like we've always done stuff with them. Maybe it's because we know each other, or we're obviously on a local level together. But yeah, we did a lot of work with Life of Agony over the years, and the fact that you and I never met face to face is pretty wild.
Even with Blood Simple, I noticed that like within 6 months of when I left the band, you guys did shows with Seven Dust.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah,
And
we did a
I
lot of
had
stuff
just
together,
I had
Dust.
just left Seven Dust after years of being with them, and then you guys went out with them. It was
Yeah,
so many times you know, we were really close to being on the same tour.
yeah.
Anyway, just to get started, how and where did you grow up? What was childhood like?
Well, I grew up on Long Island. Uh, I had a pretty, I would say, relatively regular childhood. Suburbia, uh, pretty normal family, working class family. My dad worked at the airport. My mom was a Catholic school teacher. My cousins living like one house away, so there was always a lot of family around. They were all girls though, and there was a lot of them. I have two sisters, and then there were four cousins, all girls, that lived right down the block from me. And I would say they had there was a lot of impression as I'm older now that I've seen from them, whether it was conscious or not. And yeah, it was a good place to grow up. It's pretty funny because Mike Kennedy, my partner in crime, if you would, or I've written a lot of songs with Mike over the years. I got started in the business with him, obviously with VOD. He lived right down the block from me, so I've known Mike. Mike's in like my kindergarten picture.
Wow.
So we've known each other forever. We had some years of silence where we got into a fight over something stupid, or something happened. But and I remember distinctly there was one probably from eighth and ninth grade that lasted all the way to late 11th grade, and it almost affected my getting into VOD before it was VOD, which I always tell that story because it was just a garage band. It wasn't even VOD at that point, and we had a drummer, Matt Baumbach, who I knew, and Kennedy, who I knew, and we had a bunch of mutual friends, and Kennedy just wanted to keep trying me out. And I just remember Baumbach being like, he's in. What do you keep trying him out for? And it was funny. But back to childhood, it was great. A lot of riding bikes, playing in the woods. I would say a really big part of my childhood also was I got a house out east on Long Island, out on the North Fork. It's called Cutchogue. It's a little sleepy little town. Now it's changed, of course, but used to be, we're right by the water, and countless, endless summers out there hanging with all my cousins. Again, all girls. Now there was more of them out there because we had other families out there. All summer long, just hanging out on the beach, going on boats, just playing. Like the summers just seemed to last forever. And it was all just fishermen and potato fields out there. And that was big. That's been in my family since my dad was a kid. So we've had the house since the 50s. And it's just family history out there. And it's a beautiful place. Thank God we still have it. Although, like, the Hamptons has kind of discovered it over the last 15 years. So every year I go out there, I get a shot in the heart that, bigger houses are going up. All these little fishing houses, these summer shacks are getting knocked down, and these big arrogant houses are getting put up.
Yeah.
You can't stop it. Like I go from, I used to know everybody on that beach to now I go down on the beach and they look at me like I'm a tattooed, who is this fucking guy? This is, this is my beach. I've been going here 50 years. I was raised on this beach, so I get pretty sentimental about it. But, a lot of, I think, maybe we'll get into this later in the conversation, a lot of my artistic inspiration and I think my foundation lies out there because I was just exposed to so much and I took it all in, from a very young age, and it stuck with me, and it definitely, some of it showed up in my lyrics, in some of the bands later, and it's just a very special place to us and the family, and like I said, we're grateful to still have it. And now my kids are being raised on that beach, we're out there every summer, and it's incredible,
Gotcha. That kind of leads into a couple of my next questions. Like when I'll ask two things and let you answer them both. When did music become something that you knew that you were drawn to or wanted to do, whether it was hearing a certain band or whatever? And do you remember, like, was there a moment that you can think back to and remember the first time that something really did truly inspire you? Was there a single moment, or was it a combination of things?
Yeah.
Was there an event at any point?
There's a couple of probably different levels to that. Like, there's pictures of me and my family, me singing along with headphones, the family stereo, and I believe the record was Spain. And,
awesome.
I don't know how old I am. I'm probably 6 or 7. I don't know. I was very young and I was singing. And I know very early, still in grammar school, I was all about music. And it was basically the metal or rock of the day. Motley Crue, 100%. I wanted to be Vince Neil. I was singing along to all his shit. And I sung, this is 5th or 6th grade,
Yeah.
And again, I say this because I grew up around all girls. So there was no older brother. I had one older cousin who was a boy, but he was older. And there was no one around me showing me Black Sabbath, showing me this, showing me that. So I feel like I missed out on a lot of that at the early age. But I did have this one neighbor, an older brother, 2 experiences. 2 older brothers brought me into music. And this one neighbor, he was like a metalhead. So I would borrow his Motley Crue records. I remember being so young that in the beginning, Shout at the Devil came on, and I got scared. I ran out of the room. That's how young I was. And it just goes back in my history. I don't know where it came from. There's not many musicians in my family, but I was just pulled to it at a very young age. Through high school, in 9th grade, I was into a lot of metal then, Metallica, Slayer, like all the traditional stuff, Halloween and all that kind of stuff. And, I was digesting it. And then I kind of switched 10th and 11th grade, or for some reason, all I listened to was U2. Every album, that was it. That was that obsession. And by then, though, I was sitting down starting to write, loose poetry and, loose stuff, not like short stories. I didn't really know what the hell they were, but it was something I would do. I would sit down at my desk. I had an Iron Maiden poster right above my desk. I'd light a candle, and I just start writing. And I couldn't tell you what was written there because I wasn't really in any bands or anything like that. But there was this desire to write. You know, I didn't draw, but I wrote. I didn't play any instruments at all. I didn't play guitar or anything like that then. And I would say, leading into the second part of your question, out comes the Doors movie. And I'm out east in Cutchogue. I go to see it with my friends. And I was, kind of, like I said, writing stuff and, listening to stuff. And I started to hear, like, the Doors at some of the parties out there. And then once I started hearing the Doors, and I think the first exposure to the Doors was we were all drunk sitting at a table, and there was one guy sitting at the fucking kitchen table hammered, and he's just blasting the Apocalypse Now soundtrack. And we're in high school. We're in some parents' house that are out for I don't know where the hell they are. They're away, and the house is getting ransacked, and there's this one guy just sitting there, and I'm like, what is this? And it was The End that was playing, and I was like, what is that? And I remember going home the next day being like, what the fuck was that? And I think, it's hard to remember, within like 6 months, I think the movie came out, and that was it. That was the moment that brought me from writing weirdly in my room, making no sense, to where I had to focus. I'm like, that's what I want to do with my life. I've already been singing. Like, I studied Bono for fucking the last 2.5 years. I was singing metal and Anthrax and Guns N' Roses all these fucking years. And I finally said, that's what I want to do with my life. And once that happened, that was it. That was it for the next 20 years of my life.
This was this was the end of high school?
It was, I would say, it was probably late 11th grade, not quite 12th grade, but late 11th. And yeah, and by the time 12th grade came around, VOD was already in its infancy. We were already, me, Mike, and Matt were already together making music, and it was very early. But yeah, that would be the moment that really pushed me in. And one of the first experiences, I would say, probably this is even before VOD. Another older brother, a very close friend of mine, he had an older brother that had a whole setup in his room. They were a Greek family. He had guitars, he had recording crap. He liked heavy music. And I told him, I think I could sing. He's like, yo, come in here, let's jam. And he set it up on the 4-track, and we did this. I can still remember the name of the song. It was called The Forgotten World, where he played a couple of chords. I wrote lyrics, I sung them, and he was just like, it was really fucking good. And it was mellow, though. It was more Doorsy, and it had those types of lyrics. And we did it, and he was just like, holy shit, this is really good. And I remember bringing it home, showing it to my aunt and my uncle, and it sounded, it was pretty good for a kid who wasn't really doing anything yet. So that's when I was kind of starting to look for a band. And then, again, our friends kind of got together loosely through drinking and partying. That's how I rediscovered Kennedy and Boundback, who I knew from my youth. Kennedy didn't really like me, didn't trust me, because of our history. But we were hanging out again. And I said I could. They were looking for a singer. I'm like, I could sing. And that's how it all fucking began. And VOD, I tried out on the Trooper, Iron Maiden. That was the song I tried out on.
Whoa.
And then Kennedy wouldn't let me in yet.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. It was the Trooper.
So it was more metal out of the gate.
Oh my God, VOD was completely like a thrash metal band. Again, this is before Fleischman wasn't in the band, Brendan wasn't in the band. It was just basically me, Kennedy, and we had this other drummer, Mike the Fury, who was just a neighborhood guy. And typical thing, they threw up a wall in this guy's garage, the drummer's house, insulated it, and that was our studio. Yeah. And we wrote metal songs, but it had a very interesting twist because it was all like Jim Morrison type vocals. There wasn't much screaming. It was all mid-gruff and singing. We had songs like End of the Light. I think the first song that there was a scream on was So Says You, and that was probably like the first scream I ever did, and it was just like, so fuck you, or something like that. And everybody turned, and they were just like, what was that? You gotta do more of that. And that's how it all began.
So when did more of the hardcore influence come into the picture?
Right behind that. It wasn't far behind. We were doing thrashy metal. with maybe some sort of like breakdown, biohazard type riffs in there. But it was definitely some of our first shows were for friends and this other band, Tommy Rot, who was from another town. You know, we're still on Long Island right now, playing hammerheads, like Long Island bars and shit like that. Right Track Inn, Dry Rot Cafe, which was a sober bar. We played in the parking lot with a bunch of chairs set up, and it was thrashy. You know, a couple of breakdowns here and there, but very thrashy, and some screaming. And then kind of right behind that started, you know, hardcore through Biohazard, through Life of Agony, through Madball, all these Sick of It all these bands. They started to infiltrate. Like, we started to hang out more. We were going to, as opposed to being just locked in Merrick, that's the town I grew up in, and playing these metal bars, we were slowly starting to go to, like, the hardcore clubs and hang out with, starting to see the same faces, and started passing demos out. And the demos took a while to catch, but they finally were starting to catch. And this band, Loyal to None, it's a hardcore band out of Long Island. They were the first ones. They came to one of our shows at Hammerheads, and we played with our usual crowd, a bunch of our friends, maybe a couple stragglers. And they showed up. They were like, "We really like you guys. You guys are fucking great. Would you like to do a split 7-inch with us?" And that was it. That was the beginning. And that was... We were still in high school. It might have been the summer of 91 or 92. Probably the summer of 92. That's when we were starting to get some attention from the local hardcore community, which would be Long Island hardcore, which, again, was still kind of quiet and smallish and isolated, but it was starting to blow up a little bit and get bigger, and there were a lot of kids hanging out, a lot of bands, Mind Over Matter, Disciplinary Action, Clockwise, Silent Majority, like all these fucking bands that strictly have this Long Island sound to them that are, you know, are your traditional Long Island hardcore bands, which we evolved into and I guess are known for, but we came in as a metal band, and our sound was starting to adjust through these influences, through these bands in the city and here on the island, and we started busting our way into the Long Island scene. Little by little, fan by fan. And you'd always had Biohazard, Life Ag, you know, the bands that were already kind of out in the world, they were also still around. So they would come and play they would play the Roxy out in Huntington, and that's where VOD got a lot of exposure from, I guess you would say I wouldn't say just on the national circuit. Like, the guy at the Roxy, I don't mean to jump around here, but the guy at the Frank Carriola, he liked VOD. He liked us. I don't know, maybe we were cheap. He didn't have to pay us that much. We showed up on time. It didn't cause that much trouble. But he liked us. And every national act that came through, I would get a phone call. "Yo, Tim, you're going to want to play this show. Typo's coming through. Yo, Tim, Machine Head's coming through." And that Machine Head show, years later, Flynn told me, he's like, "We never forgot you guys that night. You were on stage wearing some weird leather pants, jumping all over the place like a psychopath. It was weird, but it was really fucking cool." And I never really quite forgot that. And that was years. We're talking about a separate 7 or 8 years. He comes up and tells me that. Yeah. And that was a show that Machine Head headlined that we just jumped on. Played with Motorhead. And I think one of the biggest things that happened to us out of that club was Korn came through. And they were just coming through. They were just about to explode. And we got on that bill, and it was just insane. And it was just us and them. And I always tell this story because up until then, you know, VOD was a little bigger by then. We draw like 400 people, 300 people whenever we played. And then, like, after that show, we showed up to our show at the local PWAC, and there was, no joke, like 2,000 people there. It was crazy. There was a line, like, wrapped around this whole fucking warehouse, and it was off the chain. And then, you know, that was pretty much when VOD really started to go. You know?
And so all this was pre-getting signed.
That was, yeah, I'm pretty sure we weren't signed yet when we did that Korn show. It's hard to remember, you know. There's a lot of shows, a lot of history, you know.
Yeah.
But it was fucking crazy, man. It was really crazy. We were really young. We were all, you know, early, if anything, 20. You know, we were young, and we were just nothing mattered. I mean, we just played any show, anywhere, on the local level, anywhere from a kid's basement to slowly starting to go into the city. Like, we weren't really playing the city that much We were starting to go in there, playing like the Bond Street, going to shows in the city at the wetlands, starting to see these regular faces. Like, I know that guy, it's Toby from H2O. I know that guy, it's Freddie, and Ezak, and all these
Yeah.
fucking people. Rick to Life, he was always around.
Yep.
He had a hand in VOD's development,
Really?
whether or not we accepted or not. Yeah, he was the one to. He gave me a personal phone call and got us on that New York's Hardest comp. That was a big thing for VOD. Like we do, is this whole hardcore comp with all these local bands, probably the mid '90s, '95, something like that. And we said, yeah, we'll do it. We went out to Jersey, recorded 2 songs, just thought we would be on it. And Suffer, that song that we're known for, wound up being the first song on the whole fucking comp, which we never saw happening. It just happened because I guess it came out great and they really liked it. And that was huge for us. Like, that comp was it was called New York's Hardest, pretty respected comp. So everybody who's listening to music back then, which was back then where there's no net, we all know that, they hear us first. They hear these fucking drums and this fucking hardcore song. And it's just like, the band's starting to get recognized and do well, and it was cool.
Okay. All right. We had a technical difficulty. We're dropping back in. So I was saying that as a hardcore kid that was in the hardcore desert of Northwest Louisiana, it's awesome to hear. I know a lot about the New York scene as far as the boroughs. The pretty much any hardcore person knows about. But I was not that versed on how VOD started or the Long Island scene. In fact, a lot of those bands I didn't learn about until I think I went to work for Life of Agony at the maybe early '94 is when I came up there and started working for them. And that's when I kind of learned about that whole other group of bands. And then you signed to Roadrunner, right?
Yeah, yep. Super Soul Roadrunner, which was an imprint through, that was our first deal with Ray Capo from Shelter, Youth of Today.
Right.
And that's what it is. Like, you're in these scenes, Long Island and New York, and by then, we were everywhere. Like, I remember it seemed like for one summer, we played with H2O and 25 to Life every weekend at Coney Island High. It was like all the time we were playing. You were either playing, going to shows, which could be anywhere from Madball, Darkside, out to Long Island, Mind Over Matter, Silent Majority, DA, Neglect. Like, it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was a great thing. And slowly but surely, by this time we were kind of playing the Northeast, so we'd be doing shows in Pennsylvania, Boston, shit like that. And we played this club called the Mantis Green up in Scranton, PA. And it was opening for Shelter. And after the show, Ray Capo comes up to me. I really like you guys. You guys are great. You guys, I really think you guys can do something. I'm starting this label. Boom, 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 boom. That's how it went. So if you look at the first record, it's Super Soul Roadrunner. So that was Ray's label.
I don't know how I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was how you guys got signed.
Yeah.
Talking about Rick to Life, I think it was when I was first up there working for Life of Agony, and there was a period of time that, in between tours, or we were doing like weekend shows and stuff, and instead of flying all the way home, I just stayed in town, and I was staying in Flatbush in Brooklyn with, I was staying with Zamp and Keith at the time, Mina now, and they lived on Zamp is Joey's little brother, that, and Keith is their cousin, Mina is their cousin, and they lived on the 3rd floor of like a brownstone in Flatbush. So for this kid from Louisiana coming up there, and that's how I got the name Swampy, is when I went to work for them. Alan, the bass player, I texted for him, and he just started calling me Swamp or Swampy because I was from Louisiana. But I went to a show because growing up, reading the fanzines and seeing stuff, man, all I wanted to do I wanted to go to the Sunday matinee at CB's, and just to know the history and how many bands played there over the years. And I went, and of course, I think this was in '94, I think, but I don't remember everybody that played. I missed most of the show because I took a wrong train. I was by myself. I come in and I end up at CB's, and I got to see 25 to Life.
Wow.
And that was it. I walked in, saw their set, and the show was over. And I was talking. There were a couple guys there I had met, and I ended up talking to Rick, like at the merch table. And for whatever reason, I ended up I went out to his place in Patterson, like got on the train with him to go. He had a bunch of merch. He's like, I don't have all that here. Come to my house. I'll give you this. I'll give you this. I got this tape. And for this kid who was starved, I was older by this point. I was like 22, but I was still like, yes, I want all of this. So here I am. I end up at Rick's apartment, which if you ever went there was an adventure.
No.
It was like a hardcore museum.
Yeah.
You could barely walk through the place. There was so much stuff. And I ended up there with him that night. It's the only time I've ever talked to the guy. And I followed. He invited me to his apartment, and I get there, and we're looking through. I'm like a kid in a candy store for hours looking at everything. And he's loading me up with stuff. And then we realize it's like 10 o'clock. And I'm like, I got to get back to Brooklyn. And he's like, oh, no, you're not leaving now. And I like slept in the corner at his apartment and got up early the next morning and rode, the trains back to Brooklyn.
That's a good story.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I've never talked to him since. That was that was 30 years ago, It's crazy to think about.
That's incredible.
But that was my experience with the, as I met people from the scene up there. I played in a hardcore band that I had to drive 110 miles because the rest of them lived over in East Texas. And it was that spread out down here that when you found people that were into the same thing, it was that level of commitment to make something happen. Yeah. And we did some tours. We toured, out of Maximum Rock and Roll's Book Your Own Life, that kind of tours. We ended up touring, we did shows over the years in those early years with everybody from Sick of It All and Biohazard and Life of Agony. That's how I met Life of Agony. We opened for them quite a few times. Anyway, I digress. A couple of, as VOD got signed and immediately, you guys, I was looking at the dates last night, you really kind of did the hardcore thing for a while. Mm-hmm. At least it seemed like it. And that was one of the connections that I'm 99% sure I was at a show at the Bristol Skate Park in Bristol, Connecticut.
Yep, I remember that place.
When you guys played, and it was one of Hatebreed's first ever shows.
Probably. Yep.
And I think it was in 94 or 95 maybe. And I was surprised to see you guys had been on that bill. I remember, I think it was the same show, but I showed up late. I was with the guys from Chokehold, so a band from Ontario, Canada. Sure. And my band had done a few tours with them. And actually, Jamie with Josta 14 did part of one of those tours with my band and Chokehold. And he told, I haven't talked to Jamie in years. I would love to someday again, but I gave him, I was working for Crowbar at the time. That was the first band I teched for.
That's cool.
And I played it for him, and he was, this is incredible. He
loved it. Those guys. Yep. He loved them from early on. He was rocking their shirts and shit like that.
So I mean, maybe this is where I publicly take credit, and hopefully Jamie would confirm this, but I turned him on to Crowbar,
I think if you could take that credit, I know it's a big thing for him. Those guys went on to do a bunch of shit.
I know. Kingdom of Sorrow, him and Winstone.
Yeah.
But I was working for him at the time, and he told us those few shows that I did with Josta 14 and Chokehold, he said, I'm going to go home from this tour and start the heaviest hardcore band ever. He said, we're going to be halfway between Madball and Obituary. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was with Chokehold. We had done some shows, and I stayed over just to hang out with them for a few weeks, and it turned into like 3 months. I just hung out in Canada with the Chokehold guys and did a couple little runs with them. And we were coming to the Bristol Skate Park to do, I think that was the same show. And right as we pulled up, I was hanging out by the van, and Chris Logan, the singer, comes running out and he's like, "You got to get in here. Jamie's band is playing and they're destroying the place." And we went in there. It was like middle of the day. They're playing in the middle of the half pipe
Yeah.
and just laying waste to the place.
Unreal, man. Yeah, I remember those early days with Jamie before, because he booked a lot of we played Connecticut all the time.
Yeah.
And he would always be either there. This is, again, before Hatebreed, or he'd be booking the shows, and you'd go through him and stuff like that. And he'd be there. It was the Tune In. And then a couple of the small clubs we would play. But yeah, Jamie was always around.
Hustler.
We're
always
also
hustling.
Beyond hustler. He really he carved out a niche for himself. Jamie's all right, man. Whenever I see him, he's always positive and cool. And when you speak to him, you can tell he's actually listening to you. So he's all right in my book, man.
I hope to see him again someday. I mean, it's been probably 30 years since I talked to him, but we have so many mutual friends, some good friends that are in common. Cool. And I hope to confirm that story one day, because that's certainly how I remember it. I was the first person to play crowbar for him. Let's see, where do we go? So as we could spend hours just talking about the VOD years, and the same with Bloodsimple, but to kind of move on in the story, what I always like to ask, was there a certain show that you, maybe one of the festivals in Europe or something where you guys are playing, or whatever show, where you kind of realized, wow, like I've made it. Like this is, look at this,
Yeah.
Was there one moment?
There's been a couple of moments like that, VOD, it's pretty easy to explain, for them. Bloodsimple's got its own story, but VOD, just doing the Ozfest in '97 and playing those shows and, going, it's weird to say it, but not so much playing, but just being in that atmosphere, like going to lunch and looking over and seeing Pete Steele, looking the other way, you see the drummer of Faith No More, and, you're hanging out at night, Phil Anselmo's sitting next to you, drinking fucking beers, it's crazy. And, those were definitely some moments, being out like that, or maybe getting asked to do, again, VOD. I guess, to my memory, Slayer was gone forever, and then they came back and did like a small, it seemed almost like a tester run before they went on these last 20 years where they're a fully active band again. And it was like 3 or 4 shows in the Southeast. It was like Tennessee, Carolinas, and I can't remember where else. But VOD was asked to do that, and we main supported them. And they were like, to my knowledge, the first show they ever came back. Kerry King was still in a good mood. You can go up and talk to him. The guys were cool. Later in life, it seemed like Kerry started to get real cranky, but whatever. But those were incredible moments. Like, you're opening up for fucking Slayer, and then the next month, I'm sharing a back room with HR from fucking Bad Brains, because we're touring with them under the Soul Brains now. And I guess now that you're saying that, one of the more unique moments, and this is more on a local level, early VOD, hanging out. I tell this story because it's great. It's small, but great. And we're playing we're at the Wetlands, and those are the Wetlands years where you're playing all the dirty New York City clubs, and again, people are starting to take notice to your band, and you're starting to get to know people. And I think me and my friend went to another show that was at the Wetlands, and we wound up trying to get in the side door because we didn't go through the front. And who busts the fucking, wailing on the fucking door? Who busts the door open but Rabies?
Whoa.
Fucking Warzone. And he looks at me. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Can we get in? He's like, Tim, you're family now. Of course you can. He fucking lets us in.
Oh.
That's fucking, come on, man. Rabies, Warzone. It doesn't get much New York than that.
Yeah.
I thought I made it then. I didn't know how much further my journey was going to take me, and then, Bloodsimple, there was a lot of years like that, because, Bloodsimple started, which was different between VOD and Bloodsimple. I think I'm more known for VOD, but Bloodsimple went further. Like, we had a lot of success, and, if you want to look on fucking stupid Spotify, there's a lot of fucking listens on there. We wrote some really incredible music, and we did, no joke, some really big fucking tours. So, like, and we did a lot of festivals. Like, VOD didn't do too many, especially Euro festivals. So, doing those Euro festivals, starting to get up and up and up on the bills, looking out on 10, 20,000 fucking people.
More than
I was
that.
pretty sick. And then, I sung with Alice in Chains. I did We Die Young with them in Europe because we got to start to know them because we were doing all the side dates with them. It was us, Alice in Chains, and Stone Sour. Jerry was totally mellow and approachable. We were still drinking then, so our way in was Mike. I think it was the bass player, Mike Inez.
Yeah.
He was drinking then, so we would be doing shots with him. And one night I was, kind of drunk, and I was like, dude, do you think there's a way I could do a song with you guys? And he was like, sure, man, yeah, I'll talk to Jerry. Maybe we can work that out. And the tour just kept kind of going and going and never happened. I never asked him again, And then, the last day came, and I guess our tour manager came running to the back room. Jerry wants to see it was a makeup date. It was because Axl didn't make it or something. So it was Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains, Stone Sour, and us. Because whatever on the real run, they canceled the festival. So it was just those four bands. Jerry wants you in the back room. You got to warm up. We Die Young. He wants to see, let's see if this is going to work. So by then I kind of knew Jerry a little bit, so it was cool. And we did it. He's like, all right, we'll see you out on stage. And that was like 16,000 people. They're going on right before Guns N' Roses. And I came out and I fucking ripped it, man. It was sick.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. Did the whole song. That Big Val guy afterwards, I know he passed away, but he was like, holy shit, we haven't heard Alice in Chains like that since Early Lane. That was incredible, man. Holy shit. And, to hear it from that guy, that guy, he was a superstar in certain circles,
Yeah. I knew Val
that
from,
was a crazy moment.
I did all the years of Pantera tours working for opening acts. Val was their head of security that whole time.
Yep. So those are pretty big moments.
One other thing, and this is just me, humor me with all the kind of New York scene stuff, but
sure.
When the years that I worked for Life of Agony, it was crazy just kind of being in that world. And, they were managed by and had the same booking agent as Biohazard and Typo.
Yeah.
So we rehearsed, if I remember right, in King Creedy's, the basement at his building in Brooklyn. And, the basement in there had all the gear of all those bands. And just being around that scene, it was crazy to me coming from, the South, totally different mentality.
Right.
And everybody, the amount of fights that happened, there were, we, especially on tour, we would be out and I remember a show in Florida where a bunch of Nazi skinheads showed up at a Life Agony show. And then we figured out that all the security at the club were also skinheads. And the owner was likely, and we literally had to escape halfway through the set and just quit playing and start loading all the gear because we thought we were going to die. And I have old VHS tapes of a show in Columbus where some dude was saying something to Keith during the set, and he just jumps off the stage, and you see one at a time, all of us jump in. It was just a crazy different world. Were there any like one that sticks out that one that happened on Long Island? We were at a club I don't remember the name of the club, doing a show with Life Agony, and this kid kept getting on stage, and I jumped up there and grabbed him because he knocked Alan's mic stand over.
Right.
And I'm 6'2", 210. I'm a decent sized guy, and I just picked him up, and he took a swing at me and hit me in the back of the head. He was just some drunk kid.
Right.
But I say kid, he might have been 20. And as I'm bringing him down the stairs, Zamp was doing lights. And Zamp came from front of house because he saw this happen. And by the time I got down the side of the stairs on the stage, Zamp grabbed this dude, and I still feel pity for the guy.
Yeah.
Zamp beat him all the way out the back door of the venue.
I believe
it was just always craziness going on. So, sorry, go ahead.
Violence with shows and music, I always feel pretty weird about because, I was on the receiving end of a pretty violent incident, through those years that, ironically wasn't a show, but it was still, we were all in that scene, that fighting scene, and, stepping and fighting and being with a bunch of people and brawling. You know, VOD was always kind of good at staying away from that kind of shit, and I think our music, the guys liked, so we were always welcomed.
Yeah.
But it was crazy all the fucking time, man. Especially those early years. Fights were just they were just part of the thing. You know, I've seen people get beat down. I don't glorify it. You know, and a lot of us, I've still talked to a lot of these guys. A lot of guys have, for the most part, grown past it. Obviously, if something happens, like you used to hear stories about Madball, those guys go worldwide, and it's people fucking test them.
Oh yeah.
And I've heard the stories, and I've seen a lot of that stuff go down where people test the wrong guy and they get fucking beat down bad, and it's not even like a little fist fight. Like, these guys are not getting up after they get done with them. I've seen it on VOD tours. You know, it's crazy. You know, and I don't really like to speak about specific incidents.
No,
you know.
Yeah.
But I've seen people's fucking eyes split open with one fucking shot, so loud you hear the fucking crack. You know, there were some bad fucking dudes out there, especially in the early days. You know, as I've gotten older, I've always kind of distanced myself from it until the time I got caught up in it. And there were plenty of scraps I was in that I walked away from good, but I got my whole fucking face cut open. You know, so that, you know, it's partially what Imprint's about. And I got 766 stitches in my face. I still can't feel my face down here under this scar, and that was all brawling. You know, and when something like that happens to you, maybe you still go out and brawl, or maybe you change your perspective.
Not this guy.
That could have ruined my entire career. That was 98, and when when it all happened, I was all pumped up and amped. My face is fucking hanging off, literally hanging off. And when I realized it was so fucking serious was the next morning, or when I went back for a follow-up. The guy's like, you don't know how lucky you are. There's like 5 nerves in your face. You missed every one of them. You could have been paralyzed. Your face, half your face would have been fucking paralyzed. You know, so it's like, that would have been it. My career would have been over. And, you know, I made like 5 records since then.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I made one of my most famous records, you know, based on that incident. And, it's fucking crazy out there, man. It's real. And, again, I'm not in the full-time touring circuit anymore. Needless to say, I'm sober now. You're not going to catch me in a fucking brawl. It's just not going to happen.
Well,
you know?
My experience was that I was sober before I ever started touring. So, you know, I was always looking at everything with an unfiltered, you know, like with the raw image. I wasn't impaired in any way. And and add on top of that I'm extremely conflict avoidant. So I always was trying to avoid it. But when I was in that scene and that world up there for several years, and it was the same with some of the other bands I worked for, not from New York, but you know, it was unavoidable at times. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. So where, to kind of shift gears a little bit and look at your touring years or your music career as a whole from a different lens, as far as your drinking and use, where do you know when there was a line that you crossed? Was it early on, or was there one moment, or was it a gradual thing?
There were many moments. There were many lines that were crossed, and, you know, I survived a lot of them. You know, fuck yeah, man. There's, you know, some stories I talk about, you know, I'll try not to name any names, but, like, it started early. You know, my drinking, that started on the beaches that we talked about early on in the interview out in Cutchogue. That's where I had my first drinks, first drunks, first everything. Way before music. It's not music and I started drinking. It's in me, like we all know, you know, and it was brought to me at a very young age, and I started to get fucked up early, you know. Drugs took a little longer, but drinking, forget it. The minute I drank, I loved every fucking second of it. Yeah. You know, looking back, taking things too far, I guess your girlfriend dropping dead from a heroin overdose in her parents' house. Thank God she did survive, but she literally fucking dropped. I heard her fucking hit the ground. I was sleeping downstairs as we were all doped out and fucked up, you know, and those were the early VOD days, doing a lot of, like, partying hard, real stuff. And, she fucking, boom, you heard her fucking hit the ground. What the fuck was that? And the whole house fucking screaming, yelling, police screaming in my fucking face. The fuck did you do to her? What the fuck did she, like, going crazy? And try. What does that next day feel like? Again, thank God she wound up in the hospital for a couple of days and made it out, but that was fucking nuts. Did that stop me? No. We slowed down for a little while, but sooner or later, back to the old tricks, There never really was a lull. I know VOD, partied real hard. Went pretty crazy. I was lucky I was never arrested, driving around Long Island, wasted all the time, but I never was. And, then I moved into the city in 99, and it seemed like for a while a lot of drugs were kind of out. Like there was only drinking going on. But sure enough, I met the right people and the right connections, and I'm in between bands right now. Bloodsimple started basically right after VOD, but it took a couple of years to get it off the ground. But we're fucking partying like crazy, hanging out in all the bars every fucking night. And Bloodsimple started to take off. I told myself it was going to be different this time. It was way times worse. And that band ran hard for a long fucking time. I had a friend, he OD'd and died. Another dope overdose. He was one of my best friends. He was like my running partner. And he died. He got his tax return check and shot up, and that was it for him. He's dead. That's fucked up. It's really rough to go through something like that. I saw a guy die in his bunk on tour. That was fucking, these are all major fucking warning signs that things are fucking crazy. And, the common thread in all that, it didn't stop. The madness just continued. Bloodsimple was a hard band. They would know, like, VOD kind of always had, a couple of the guys in the band weren't going as hard, so you always kind of had to sneak around them and, watch for the prying eyes or the nose up in the air, what did you do last night type thing. Bloodsimple was not like that. Everybody was a fucking maniac. And our rig, whatever it was, whether it was the RV or we had a tour bus on that tour, we were on tour with a lot of big bands that had a lot of, they couldn't, they had a lot of people making a lot of money around them, so they weren't going to fuck up. So they'd come to our rigs to get party up and hang out, and it was a non-stop fucking party, I remember going in the VOD on the Ozfest. I got so obliterated that I didn't even know where I was. I was on all sorts of shit, and I remember Rob Flynn. I was like comatose. Rob Flynn pulling me off the RV, screaming in my face, "Yo! Wow!" It was just like fucking nuts, man. It was crazy. Crazy shit. And Bloodsimple was no different. A lot of drinking, a lot of partying. I would think, looking back, a lot of the things that probably saved my life is I was a singer, and I took my singing seriously, and I wouldn't go absolutely berserk because I needed to sing every night, and I didn't miss shows. My voice might have been worse some nights, but I always knew, like, look, I can't do 15 fucking lines tonight. I gotta fucking sing for the next 15 days. Yeah. So no, I'm not gonna do it. No, I'm not gonna bang a needle because I got a fucking show tomorrow night and I can't miss it. And those things saved my life, so like that. It's the kind of stuff where I didn't go that extra fucking mile and fucking lose my life like my friend did. The one who OD'd, there were 3 of us, and 2 of them decided to take a needle, and I said, no, this is too much. I ain't fucking doing this. I gotta play. We had to play Albany the next day. Yeah. They dropped me off, and one of them's dead, and I don't know where the other one is. It's very real shit.
So, when did you find bottom? Still, Bloodsimple was still going, or? Yeah,
Bloodsimple was still going, and this about me. I started to get, Bloodsimple was touring a lot. I had my fiance, if you want to call her, but basically my wife at home in the city. And I was starting to get a lot of panic attacks. I was out in Europe, and I wasn't sober, partying, raging, going nuts. And we were on a festival run, and I remember we were going to Download, and I don't know what happened, but the night before I had like a panic attack in my sleep. And for the rest of that tour, I was completely like riddled with fucking anxiety. Like it was unbearable. that the only time I would feel normal, so here's the story you've heard a million times, is when I would start drinking. Then I would forget all about it, but it was a cycle because all that stuff you're drinking and putting in your body is just provoking the anxiety, and you wake up the next day in pieces, and that fucking cycle went on. We were still touring. We weren't coming home. We were still had 6 months to a year of touring in front of us, and this shit started to happen, and it was bad. It wasn't going away. I remember getting on the plane home, 30,000 feet. I had another. I thought they were going to have to restrain me on the plane. Like, I was fucking out of my mind. And I was bad. And I was home now. I didn't want to, we rehearsed in Brooklyn. I didn't want to get on the subway. I remember going to record vocals. I didn't want to drive through the Holland Tunnel. Like, I was really fucked up. But I wasn't doing anything to take care of it. I was still partying and all this bullshit, living this rock star persona, living in the Lower East Side, the whole fucking gamut, the whole fucking thing. And, my ex, we got pregnant, which is a wonderful thing. Gave birth to my first daughter, Summer, and I was on tour when she came. I missed that. This is before she came 6 weeks early, so she was born when I was just wrapping up Hellfest, and I had one more date left to fly home, and she came, so I missed that. That wasn't good, but whatever. That wasn't my bottom. I'd say, things. Bloodsimple was still going out. My ex was starting to get tired of this touring shit. Even though we were big, we weren't bringing home that much money. And I was going away a lot. I was supposed to be home now. We had the kid. She wanted me to stay home for whatever it was. A couple of months. We got offered the Korn Family Values tour. That's it. We were gone. Gone for whatever it was. 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Then we came home. Was home for like a week and a half, and boom, we went to fucking Out With Hell Yeah for a month and a half, and that's the panic attacks came back, and they were brutal. I remember looking at the tour itinerary. I had flown home for one day. Now my daughter's around, she's like a year old or 8 months, and I remember flying home for Thanksgiving and getting back on the plane to go to Oklahoma and just being like, what the fuck? I don't know if I could fucking do this, and shows are big, band's doing well, partying's still going fucking hard. And I remember looking at the itinerary, just watching it, we're about to just start going west. And I'm just like, I can't fucking do this. But I did it. I didn't quit, self-medicated with Lexapro, which is a fucking bad idea. I was getting it from like one of the other roadies. Talk about stupid shit, And I just didn't know enough that maybe you should just stop fucking drinking, you idiot. And I probably would have felt a lot better and managed better and didn't make some really poor choices out there. And my bottom, I could still tell you, was May 4th, 2008. I'm not going to get into details. They're pretty gory. And I got kicked out of my apartment. It's not funny, but it happened. I had to go out onto Long Island, go back, live in like one of my folks' houses, and get my fucking feet on the ground. I had to quit Bloodsimple. We were going out. We had a whole tour lined up with Seven Dust. It was booked, and everybody, it was a very public affair. This whole fucking thing, and my manager was just like, "Look, just go. We're gonna give you a couple of weeks. Go out, do what you got to do. We'll talk in a couple of weeks and see where you're at. You need to go fucking chill out." And then we had that conversation, and I decided I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. And that was really fucking hard. A lot of disappointments, a lot of people pissed off at me. But it was a life choice. I was going to fucking die out there, or I was never going to see my kid again.
Yeah.
And, not to get into everybody's business, but Bloodsimple, there was like 4 divorces in that fucking band, man. And some of the guys muscled through it. My time was up. Bloodsimple probably still had some legs. We were doing well, but you could see it was kind of, maybe we were going to go do another record, maybe we weren't. Like, it was getting to that point. And I was just like, I'm done. I gotta get my fucking life together. I didn't know what the fuck to do, so I was home and whatever. It was rough.
So that's your date still? Since then you've been
Oh, yeah.
sober?
Yes, by the grace of God, as they say, I made it. I bounced around, hit my head a lot. I don't run the best program, but no, no, I never went back.
So one other thing that you and I think, connect on is the fact that you're a New York City union carpenter, right? Is it the
Yeah,
city you work for?
yeah.
So when did you when did you get into the union? Like, is that something you have been doing all along, or did this
Well,
come after
this
Blood
is
Simple?
cool because this is different, but it's all good in the hood. We could talk about this. Very proud. Well, not to try to stay on topic is, through my dad was a blue collar guy, although he wasn't in the union or anything like that, but he worked, at the airport and stuff. So he was always, long story short, he was always doing handyman shit. So I'd go out and, he'd work with a neighbor. Maybe we were doing a deck. I remember insulating some shit, just, small stuff, helping him paint, side jobs he did. And then so I was always kind of doing stuff with my hands, and I did like it. I liked the way it felt. I felt good about it. And, when VOD, we were big. I didn't have to work in the early years. I was young, so I didn't really do much. But like after Imprint ended, I was older. I was like 23, and I was like, my dad's like, "What the fuck are you gonna do now?" And I'm just like, I guess, I guess I'm gonna have to get a fucking job. And I remember I literally opened the newspaper and I just started looking, and I found this sheetrocking company, and I just went for an interview. And I didn't know nothing, and they were just like, sure, you want to work? Yeah. And the interview went there. Yeah, well, hi, you could be a helper. Show up to this job. And I remember my dad gave me like some 50-foot long extension cord, a pair of a rusted hammer, and some shitty snips. And I showed up on the job, and the guy's like, what the fuck are you going to do with that stuff? I was like, it took me like 20 minutes to open up this fucking cord. So, needless to say, I love these guys. They partied a little bit. We know construction workers, but they were mostly weed heads. There wasn't anything crazy going on. But they were all Long Island guys. At this time, yeah, I'm living on the island. And I love these guys. I love going to the construction sites, 7 in the morning, laying fucking sheetrock and framing and stuff like that. And I developed some really good relationships with these guys. They had quads. They had all the fucking toys.
Yeah.
We'd go night riding on the quads and shit with a case of beer hidden on some tree. They had boats. They had trucks. I'm like, dude, I want this shit, And I started rocking and framing for this company. And so, again, the band would get big, and they supported the band. All these guys loved the band. They'd come and watch VOD play and shit. And I'd have to leave to go on tour. But I would always come back. Long story short, I'd come back and go to work because I like to work. Plus, I needed money. And I'd always have a job with them or anywhere I can, pick up work. So as I was, you're getting older now. You're living in fucking New York. You can't really survive on a fucking band fucking income. And by this time, I'm out of my house. And Bloodsimple was doing their thing. Then Bloodsimple ended. It's like, what the fuck? I had my own business for a little while between Bloodsimple and VOD for about 3 or 4 years. We were doing carpentry and brownstones and shit like that. So, I had to make money. You got to make money in this fucking town. So, I had a good knowledge of it. When Bloodsimple went fucking belly up, and I told you I had to go to the island, I went to my uncle. I'm like, I need a fucking job, man. Call fucking Joe. I need to get into the fucking union. And he's like, all right, I'll call him. And I remember it was a day like this, a sunny day in May or something, 2008. And I go to Joe's house. It's like, so what's going on? You want to get in the union? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know anything about sheetrock? I'm like, yeah. What about framing? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm like, I could do ceilings too. He's like, any idiot can do ceilings. I'm like, all right. Meet me down at the local at this fucking time. You're gonna meet Ed Mosley, and we're gonna get you your book. It was like something out of the movies,
Yeah.
It's my Uncle Don calls fucking Joe. I meet him in the city at the local. He brings me up to the BA at that point, and I bought the full book. And a lot of guys might frown on that, but look, I need to fucking make a living.
Yeah.
And I had a kid, and I'm living at a relative's house. I need my own fucking place. My band is done. So I got in, and at first I was gonna go right out onto the list, which is like suicide because you're never gonna get fucking called. And I was talking to Joe, and he was just like, "Yo, you seem like a nice guy. Why don't you come work for me?" I'm like, "All right." He's like, "Be at this site at 7 a.m." So that's how I got my start in the union, laying rock and framing. And I remember talking to him like the night before I was going in. He's like, Timmy, do not be intimidated by these guys. Go in there and do your fucking shit." And that's it. I didn't for the first, I would say 6 months. I didn't sit at the lunch table. I didn't say a fucking word to anybody. I just shut my mouth. I made my introductions. Joe didn't want them knowing that I knew him. Like, it was a whole thing. And so I just would put my headphones on during the breaks, pop them out, and just fucking frame and rock, like fucking nothing. And I earned my way in because you got to be a killer. It sounds weird, but you're in the union now. You step onto that site with a full book, you don't know what you're doing, you're fucking gone.
Yeah.
They'll give you a check by break. So I just literally held, and I remember slowly they started inviting me to the table. And I work for this company a lot. There isn't really like I'm going on tour or anything like that. They'll be like, "Take your tools, bye." So, I'm strapped in, I'm working, making a living. By this time, I'm back in, I got my own place in Brooklyn. Me and my kid are seeing each other all the time, which is what I wanted, I wanted to be there for her. And, I'm not back with my ex, I'm on my own. So, I did that. It was the union. Get laid off a lot, it kind of sucks. Still doing odd jobs around Brooklyn. Still doing, BOD is doing shit now, so I'm writing another record, so I'm still doing music, which is incredible. And then a big thing for me is I got with the city. I was talking to a carpenter that I met at a meeting, and he was just like, "What are you doing? You gotta, I made fucking this much money. I didn't even break a sweat. You gotta go take the city test. You gotta come with the city, man." So I did, and I got in with the city because now I'm a city carpenter, which is, you're still in the local, but you're in the civil service branch of the local. And 2013, so I've been with the city ever since. I love it. It's fucking great. Again, you can't live in New York as a fucking musician unless you're like 20 and you're in like 17 different bands and you're like a bartender.
Yeah.
I got 2 kids, 2 cars, a mortgage. I got it all. And that doesn't come for free, so you got to be out there. And I'm very proud of what I did, turn my shit around. I'm a respected tradesman and, a carpenter by trade, and I still love it. It's a great life, and I met some of the greatest people within this business,
Yeah. There's, I was in the stagehands union early in my 20s for about 5 or 6 years, and then I've been in the film local for 17 years now. And the sense of security that you get from it that I never had doing rock and roll. And of course I wasn't, a band member. I was a crew guy, and I was super lucky. And, maybe I'll get into this on later episodes with some of the people I was actually working for. But the last couple of bands I worked for were gracious enough because I had 2 little kids towards the end of my touring career. And they were kind enough to kind of make me the 5th or 6th Beatle, so to speak, and add me to their insurance that like the band was on. So I was really lucky that happened, but that does not happen to crew guys, So I had no insurance. I had no retirement. There was no, I was on retainer towards the end of my career. So if we took time off, they would retain me to make sure I was going to be available for them. But to step in to a union position where, I had health insurance done, like don't have to worry about it anymore. And I, other than working enough to cover it, and I had automatic, retirement that I'm paying into and the productions are paying into. Yeah. There's such it was like I felt like a grown up at 34 years old, whatever age I was, finally.
Yeah.
And just the idea of, I've always been comfortable with the idea of an honest day's work for an honest day's pay.
Absolutely.
It's a very simple transaction. I recognize that you're paying me to give up this many hours of my life in your service, but in return, you're going to give me what I need to live,
Yeah.
And once you kind of accept that role, right or wrong, I'm not going to get into the the whole debate of the society we live in and how we have to
Yes.
work so much just to afford to live.
Yep.
But once I found acceptance, I love working now. I'm 51
Yeah.
years old. We could do a whole podcast, and Clint and I joked about this on his episode as well, about the physical toll that the years on the road have taken, and the years for me of also doing manual labor have taken. I've had, a laundry list of major surgeries to repair my body. I have more than I need. And I know it's true for you. It's true for anybody. If you're not in physical therapy and have
I'm
a
in physical therapy
chiropractor,
right now.
exactly.
I just got approved another 20 sessions for my shoulder that's pretty much frozen, and I go twice a week. It's all through workman's comp and all that shit because it's over the years of working,
Yeah.
and I love it, and I'm grateful for it every day. I made in my professional life. It's funny that how you say it, like I don't know what you said a couple minutes ago. You're retired from touring life. There's no fucking kidding here. That's pretty much where I'm at, and for some years I was missing it, and I felt like I lost out, but I don't feel that anymore at all. I feel I made some very conscious moves in my working career and some just lucky shit that happened that put me in this position. Sobriety is obviously an enormous fucking part of that. We know what it's, the construction industry, that's not full of saints. Like, there's some fucking maniacs. Think about union carpenters in New York City. You ain't going to meet people like that. There are some real lunatics out there, and they're fucking, they're doing the devil's work too, and I didn't get involved in any of that stuff because by then that's not what I wanted out of my life, and it's given me a great life. Like I get up, I work, like you said, I get up very early, I work, and it's cool. I come home and I got a whole nother day left by the time I get home because I start early,
Yeah.
and it's great. This has also afforded me that I could still do music. I did 2 full-length VOD records, still as a union carpenter. I got my other project, Rollin Coffin, that I do on my own time, and a lot of it I finance myself, although it is on a label. We kind of split it because I want ownership,
Yeah.
And it's great. I'm about to go into the studio. We already did the roughs, but in about a month, I'm going to go finish the vocals for a couple of songs that I'm about to release for Rollin Coffin, and it's good. Everything's going is good.
Well, a question that I know for me, and again, I wasn't a guy on stage that people were looking at, but for so many years, and I think you just kind of touched on this, talking about that, but my whole identity was wrapped up in that I was a roadie, or, I was a guitar tech and I toured with these big bands. It was not just the job I did. I mean, I took that on. It was who I was. And it was, living on the road is not reality.
No.
It's like this make-believe world.
Yes.
It's not, for me, I was working 16 hours a day out there, but still you kind of get that, other people look at you like, wow, that's so cool. I wish I could do, so I got wrapped up in that. And then it's the exact same in the film business. Oh, you work on movies. Oh, you get to be around movie stars. I'm manual labor. That's what I'm doing. Yes, I'm around it. And yes, it is cool. It's awesome. But after you do it a while, it's just a job. And so for years, my identity has been wrapped up in the 2 professions I've been in. And at some point in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, that quit being the case. And my identity now is at the forefront is that I'm a husband and I'm a father.
Right.
And, and I am a friend to the people in my, that I am the person that is in relationships with all the people in my life. And that shift, I'm so much more comfortable in my skin in that, just being a dad and a father and,
Yeah.
and all of that. So how much is that something that you still struggle with, of letting go of the job, so to speak, as your identity? You're the singer from VOD, you're the singer from Bloodsimple.
It's a very good question. It's a very unique question. Sometimes I'm grateful for any interview that anybody wants to do with me. I'm very humble about it. But that's a good question. And the answer is yes. Sometimes I can totally relate to what you're talking about the persona. I was that guy. I was the lead singer of two pretty damn successful bands. That reputation or whatever, the persona, went with me everywhere my entire life, from the early '90s to even past 2008. Was totally that person, and even sober, that persona and reputation followed me. People, it's fucking New York. People recognize you when you're in these bands, and I don't know if I struggle with it as much anymore, but there was a total letting go thing that wasn't easy. I felt a lot of my life, especially professionally, I was trapped between two worlds: the singer, musician, and believe it or not, was the construction thing, which I really don't share about too much. This is different. I know you, and it's a different type of interview, but like, those two worlds never don't really meet. Although somebody at the job always seems to fucking find out and recognize me, and it all comes out and blah 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 blah. But like, I'm proud of that. I recorded some incredible fucking music, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not. I don't. I'm not. I don't talk about it because there's a lot of people that just won't really get it. But there was always this duality between the two worlds, this struggle, and it was very hard to let go of that music because it was all that was everything for 15. I pretty much boil it down to 15 years straight. I did two fucking bands. There was no break. They were both on a professional level, and it was never a break. VOD broke up, and me and Kennedy started Bloodsimple right away, and it was right full on. And that band went on to do some crazy shit. So it never was, and it got taken from me. I didn't give it up. I gave it up because I had to, but it wasn't. It was a forced decision. So I still felt in my brain I had stuff to do, and I was going there. But VOD went on to do records, so we went on to tour, but it wasn't a full-time thing. So it was still there. But at this point, over the last, I would say, once I got with the city, I kind of feel a lot more comfortable. Because, again, there's a lot of security. The money's good. I could still be myself. I'm not going to some job and putting on a fucking suit and turning into another person. You know what I mean? It's still me. And I've always related to, I don't want to go too far off, but I learned by seeing something. I was never a guy to sit in the classroom I never learned that way. And I really enjoy building shit. I still do to this day. It's something that I felt I got gratification out of. It took me out of my fucking self. I like getting up early in the morning, going to work, pounding coffee, blowing a bunch of shit out, and getting home. Yeah. I like that. And it's worked out very well for me. So, again, I'm still doing music, but I'm just doing it more on my level. There were times in my life that music took over my life, made me, for better or for worse, make some very poor decisions because I was in circumstances and surroundings that were not conducive to a regular life, and it made me. I made the decisions, but my surroundings influenced my decisions. And now that I'm sober, proud of that too. I just have a whole nother life. Like that, I have some regrets, of course, but I'm just so much more present in my life now that it's just I never would have imagined it back then that I would have what I have now and feel good about it. Like I said, the last 8-10 years, I've come to a different place in my life. I'm here for my kids. I got 2 of them. I see them all the fucking time. Married. Got a great fucking wife. Lucked out on that. And life is good, man. I don't worry anymore about what's coming around the corner or did I fuck this person over? I'm going to get into something, or vice versa. I don't have that worry anymore.
Yeah.
I have, like you said, I have a sense of security. And this is a little tidbit I'll share with you off of, from the early years, the late 90s, with some of those carpenters that I met that I'm still friends with. There was this one guy, John, a little older than me. I think he's 10 years older than me. And he was established. He had his wife, kid. He was the foreman on the job. He had 2 kids. He's the one who had the quads, the boats, all this shit. Smoked a lot of weed. In a nice house on the North Shore. I'm just like, damn, you can get all this shit from fucking carpentry. But I remember asking him one day, I'm like, John, like, what was the best years of your life? Like, and I just asked him that. I'm like, what was the best years of your life? Like what, when you were in your 20s? Like, no. He's like, what are you talking about? The best years are now, right now. There's a certain security that I have now with the family and my house. So no, the best years are now. I was just like, wow. And I look back on that now, because again, he's like 10 years older than me. He's retired now. And I know what he's saying. Yeah. Like when I met him, I thought he was like an old guy, like an older guy. He's gray, a little gray, but he was only fucking 34. And he just seemed like he had it so much more together. And I remember him later in life being like, you remember when you asked me that? When you first met me, you thought I was so old? And I was like 35 then, and he was 45.
Yeah.
So he's a guy I met in the trades that still friends with today. He was always kind of around. He was a cool guy.
So is that, I know just as you're saying that, I think about it on a daily basis. I've lived this incredible life. I've been to 45 countries. I've seen the world a bunch of times. That's all fantastic and incredible. I've seen the best bands in the world from the side of the stage. I have, made all these films and, TV series and stuff. All that's awesome. I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. But I remember, I didn't plan on saying this. I'll share this story. I was in a meeting. I was only about a year sober, and there was this guy here that came in around the same time I did and got sober. And he said, he told this story of being in college at Louisiana Tech, which is about an hour from here where we live in Shreveport. And he said one Friday afternoon, he got out of class. He went back to the dorm. He had like 2 beers, took a shower. He was coming home for the weekend over here to see his girlfriend. And he got in his old Camaro, windows down, and was playing his favorite songs on the radio. The sun's starting to set. He turns west into the sun. He's smoking a joint. And he said it was perfect. The mixture was exactly perfect. He said, I had just the right amount of booze in me and a little bit of weed and the perfect song, and it was the perfect temperature, and I was going to see, everything was perfect. He said, I spent the next 25 years chasing that exact feeling, and I never found it again. He said, yesterday afternoon, he said, I was laying on the floor of my living room with my wife and my 2 kids watching a movie, and I got that same feeling.
There you go.
And that is my experience completely. I've had that experience over and over in recovery, where if I'm present in the moment, if I can stay where my feet are and recognize the abundance of things in my life I have to be grateful for. I'm 51, be 52 in September, and I'm happier than I have ever been.
Incredible, right?
I got 4 kids. I'm married to a great woman. And, so is that, do you get to experience that same thing? Is that where you are in your life now?
I experience a lot of great stuff, and, some of the great stuff is, like you said, when everybody's at home and you're doing maybe some of the most minimal thing. Maybe you're just hanging out in the backyard. I like to cook.
Yeah.
That was one of my gifts of sobriety. And maybe you're just hanging around the grill and the sun is out and it's Saturday and you're chilling on your deck, and, the house you earned and stuff like that. And when everybody's together, the 2 girls, my wife and me, we're just chilling. No particular agenda. Maybe I futzed around in the garage a little bit and made something, I get those feelings, man. You know, and you got to hold on to them. And what you got to do, at least for a guy like me, you need to be present enough to recognize those. Because
That's
those subtle moments, they come and go so quick, you know. And not to sound cliche, but stopping to smell the roses, there's meaning to that. You know, there's meaning to, you know, it's another chapter of life. Like, I'm still doing music, but it ain't in this. It's not the same as it was. It's not even. I'm not even talking about the sound, but the experience and the way it was made, because it's just not like that for me anymore. I have a whole nother life, and yeah, it's crazy, you know, to go into just a slightly different topic. There's like an explosion right now of hardcore. Hardcore is bigger than I don't know, it might be as it's ever been on every level. You know, you got that band Turnstile doing stadiums. There's like 8 million smaller hardcore bands. There's a lot of tough guy bands there's a whole new generation of that going on. And sometimes I'll go onto YouTube. Maybe I'll hear something on a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Check out whatever, some band. And I'll go check it out, and I'll be like, this is insane, because these shows look exactly like the fucking shows I did 20-something years ago.
Yep.
It's fucking nuts. It looks exactly the same. The same. It drives me like, I'm just like, this is fucking really crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the shows look exactly like they did in the mid to early 90s to me. Even the venues look the same. And to me, that really, it blows my mind, because it is a circular thing, and it's at this point, especially, and I'm pretty sure it's worldwide, but especially in New York, you know, that Club St. Vitus and all these places, it's just, I swear to God, the venues and the people look, it's the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, kind of to start wrapping up, what inspires you today? Like, what gets you out of bed today? What do you get excited about?
The weekend. No, you know, just work is good. I'm doing well at work. You know, there's always an adventure. You know, now I work on bridges a lot. So, and I live and work in New York City, which is just an incredible fucking place. You know, this city has given me so much. You know, I really, you know, my family, they all moved. They're in like the Carolinas predominantly. You know, I still got some cousins out on the island, but they're all gone. And I love being a New Yorker. You know, my wife is Floridian, but she would never move to Florida. You know, she's a New Yorker now too, and I love this city. I love working for the city, and you know, getting me out of bed. Maybe, you know, just getting up, getting down to work, seeing a good sunrise. I see a lot of sunrises because I'm up early, and just looking out at the city. You know, sometimes, you know, there's some great stuff that happens. I wind up on some crazy part of the city that no one ever gets to see, because maybe I'm climbing some fucking part of the bridge that the public's not allowed onto.
Yeah.
And that's always pretty invigorating, like climbing to the top of the Williamsburg Bridge to fix some window. Like, I'm talking about way up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that's pretty cool, you know. Picking my kid up at school every day, that gets me up in the morning. You know, there's days, I remember my father getting up every single day, work every day. And he didn't know what it was back then because you're young, but he's supporting the family, and that gets me up. If I don't get up and get out, you know, I gotta go. This is it. This is where it's at, you know. And yeah, I told you earlier, you know, I love painting now. I do a lot of oil paint, a lot of landscapes and stuff. I really enjoy that shit. You know, when I get the time, it takes a little while to set up and break down. So sometimes I don't have the time, but when I get lost in one of those, and when I started and where I'm at now, to me, I've made some great strides, and I really enjoy that. You know, maybe just taking a nice walk in the woods. I love that shit. I play a lot of guitar now, you know, and I enjoy playing that. Sometimes I play other people's shit. Sometimes I'm writing my own stuff, you know. So, you know, all that kind of stuff, man. Just living. I'm not dead. I could have been dead easily. It could have been me 1,000,000 times out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not. And, you know, like you said, you put it in a good perspective. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to go touring again unless something miraculous fucking happens. And I'm happy and I'm good and I survived a lot of crazy fucking shit and I've seen a lot. And yeah, I can say I'm good. Everything's good.
Yeah. I thought I looked at all those dates last night to see the list of bands that you shared the stage with. And when you were talking about when you first started writing as a kid in your bedroom under the Iron Maiden poster, and I saw that you guys played with Iron Maiden, I think with Bloodsimple at festivals,
Yeah.
And just that, knowing, being a kid who had that same dream myself, I gave up the dream of making it in a band for a lot of reasons, but I chose to go the other path and hand somebody else a guitar,
Right.
But I knew because of my circumstances that was my best chance to go and see all these things and experience all that, and so I feel the accomplishment and the gratitude of getting to do it from a crewman, from a crew guy's point of view, but knowing, to get to share the stage and have those people as peers, that's the dream. That's the dream lived, check,
Yeah.
done. And,
Yeah.
so it's pretty awesome to see where, in the end, what was just a bunch of piss and vinegar and anger, essentially, how far it can take you.
Yeah.
Literally.
Really, and it's something like it's something of course I reminisce, but I don't obsess. But sure, we did a lot, and then when you really stop to think about it, we were incredibly fortunate. We were prepared for a lot of it. A lot of opportunities came our way that we were prepared for, and we took on, and we succeeded, and we kept going, and built some really good names for ourselves out there in the industry, and it's great, And I look back on it now because the stuff I record now is a little different. I don't think your traditional hardcore kid's going to like it, and that's okay. But it's something, I wrote this shit. This is, I wrote it in this living room on an acoustic guitar, and then I take it to my co-producer, and he helps me bring it to the next level, and then we go on to record it. And I'm incredibly fortunate that I still have a bunch of fans out there that are willing to listen to this, are willing to purchase, decide to play live. I'm sure people are going to come and check it out, although I'm just not really there yet. But that's an incredible feeling to sit back. There was a certain security. I know we're going to start wrapping this up, but there's a certain security with VOD, Bloodsimple, Mike Kennedy. He was always kind of with me. And now I'm doing this shit on my own. And, that was, at this point, that was the only way I was going to go on with music, because VOD's done for now. It might be done forever, I don't know. Bloodsimple's done. Am I going to go join some other fucking band on a national circuit? I don't really want to do that, And this is what I had to do to continue my craft, my art, or just fade into fucking memory and maybe do some fucking reunion shows. That's all good. Yeah. But I still want to create, and I want to create what I can make. And when I sit down and I pull this song and I got a book that I'm writing the lyrics, but I'm not just writing lyrics anymore. I'm writing the fucking music. That's huge to me.
Yeah.
Because it's something I think I missed out on because I wasn't proactive enough to pick up the guitar when I was doing this shit professionally. I was satisfied with just lyrics and being the singer, But now I've made it again because I'm recording songs and they're getting out there in the world. And when I sit back and I listen to it on a vinyl record or something, I hear that I've created this new batch of music. I'm very humbled that I can still do that, and it feels good.
Yeah. And the Rollin Coffin, that's out there. It's on Spotify. It's on Spotify.
You can
Apple Music.
We got a vinyl EP out on Static Era Records. You can go to staticera.com, pick up. We have a CD and a 5-song EP. We got some shirts out there, and we're just about to record 2 more songs, so we'll probably doing another video and releasing those 2 songs over the summer. And, if it feels right, maybe we'll start playing some live shows.
Gotcha. The last question I always like to ask is, my kids, my two little boys, my girls are older, but my two little boys are 5 and 3. And I can't remember the first time he said it, but it's been a year or two ago that my older boy, Patty, my wife did something that made him super happy. It was probably giving him a treat or something. And he looked at her and he said, that made my heart really happy. And then he'll also say that made my heart smile, which is, the simplest thing, but I try to think about that every day. Like, what makes my heart happy today? So I know you've answered this in a lot of ways, but just a kind of simple answer of what makes Tim Williams' heart happy today.
Wow, man. Honestly, very cliche, but having a good day out there with the kids. My older one, she's almost 17, so we know which realm she's in. She's, Daddy ain't that cool anymore. But Daddy is bringing her to a Madball show April 27th, so that's going to be cool. But, the little one's still real cute, and just, seeing her do shit, maybe she'll come home with something she drew, and she'll just kind of show you, that's, those family moments are really great, and they're really hard to replicate. They just kind of happen, and that's really cool. Honestly, I said this earlier, but I really like hiking, and we got some great hiking shit around here. So sometimes I'll go out on my own to this Hunter Island, which is, over by City Island and shit. Sometimes I'll be on my mountain bike. Other times I'll just be walking. But just being out there, nobody around. I got this same tree I go sit under. I sit there and I just look out on the earth, and a lot of my inspiration for my lyrics and my art comes from the natural environment, whether it's urban or on a hike somewhere. It's just something about the rhythm that gets into me. Being that I went on to write some of the most aggressive shit ever, it's still based, it comes from a natural place.
Yeah.
And just being out there, being just the simple things like the earth, the blooming of the spring. I don't want to sound cheesy, but this is it. This is what I walk these trails and I just chill and I let go. I live in a crazy fucking city, and just being able to let it all go, even if it's for an hour, that makes me happy.
That's awesome. Well, for me, I don't have great wealth. I haven't amassed a bunch of money or material things, but I have recognized and tried to show gratitude through taking care of the relationships I have in my life. I've recognized for years that I'm just embarrassed with how rich I am with connections and friendships I've made with people. And so many of those came out of those years of touring, which were, I was even sober then, but those were some dark days and years. There's a lot of darkness out there. We were around a lot of, unhappy people that didn't have a lot of life skills a lot of the time, and you're living together, and but out of that, I have so many people that I could call, even if I've said this over and over in the episodes before this. It doesn't matter if I haven't talked to somebody in a while. Once we reconnect, it's like we never missed a beat. And I knew as soon as I met you, even though it was in a little square, and since we've gotten to know each other, we haven't seen each other in real life.
No.
But I could pick up the phone and call you anytime, day or night, and I know you'd be there, and I know that you know the same of me. So I'm super grateful for your friendship. I'm so thankful that you came on here and did this with me.
No doubt, man.
I really appreciate it. And everybody, if you can check out on Instagram, you can find, does Rollin Coffin have its own page?
Yeah, Rollin Coffin's got its own page, and then Tim Williams Vokes,
Yeah.
VLX, that's a lot of where I update a lot of the stuff. Rollin Coffin's on Spotify, obviously VOD and Bloodsimple's all over Spotify and stuff like that, so it's out there. And Static Arrow Records is the one who's putting out the vinyl, and it's out and available. It's a 5-song EP that Rollin Coffin did about a year ago.
Awesome. Thanks so much, buddy. I really appreciate it. I love you, Tim.
No doubt, man. This was great to connect and hang, and let me know. Give me a buzz whenever, and thank you very much.
Thank you.